Alrighty, guys. Buenas tardes, or buenos dias, or buenas noches. Who knows when you're watching this video? But today I am going to teach you a little bit about the subjunctive mood. I know you've been doing the present tense and working with that a little bit, but I want to show you the weird ones. I want you to show you the irregular verbs. I want to show you the stem changing verbs. I want to show you the spell changing verbs. So let me show those weird ones to you and explain them to you myself, and see if we can go from there. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen with you and we'll get going. Here we go. So you had this presentation already assigned. You should have already done the first half at least. But I do want to go ahead and do the last half with you to make sure that you are understanding it completely. So to recap, the subjunctive is not a tense. Okay, you can't say it's present tense, past tense, future tense. It is whatever tense you want it to be. We're working in the present tense, okay? So it still is present tense. The problem is that it doesn't follow present tense rules. Because it's still in the present tense, we're not calling it a tense, we're calling it a mood. The subjunctive is a mood, okay? So to recap what we should already know, the subjunctive pretty much explains doubt, or expresses doubt, expresses wish, expresses desire, commands, things like that, things that you should do. It's not just like you do this and I do that. It's like, I wish you did this, right? So in English, it's kind of the same thing. In English, you say, you do homework, right? But if I express some desire for you to do it, instead of saying, I wish you do homework, I don't say that. I say, I wish you did homework. So it kind of changes, even though you went from present to past in English. In Spanish, it's just a little switch that you do to the end of the verb, okay? So, por ejemplo, if I want to say, I wish you did homework, I would say, ojalá, because it's one way to say I wish. Ojalá que hagas la tarea, o sea, on time, a tiempo. Ojalá que hagas. Tú haces is really the present tense that you have learned already. Tú haces. But I'm not saying haces. I'm saying hagas. Ojalá que tú hagas la tarea a tiempo. So that is the subjunctive, okay? You switched from haces to the mood, que hagas. It's a desire. Since I showed desire, I use the subjunctive mood. Now, how do I do the subjunctive? I literally take the yo form with hacer would have been hago, right? Let me see if I can share my screen with you guys. Share like a whiteboard. I think there's a whiteboard on here. Okay, so I'm just gonna mess with the whiteboard. And I don't like that. Let's see, draw. Okay, I need a white background. Sorry. Planner. So let me just go where I was to, never mind, that was Spanish 3. Let me go to Spanish 4. Spanish 3, subjunctive. Okay, where I was. No, why did it go away? I don't like this. Okay, it won't let me. Anyways, so here's my whiteboard. I'm going to use the verb hacer, okay? So I'm just going to type the verb because that will be faster. I don't know what it's doing now, guys. It is not being cool. Okay, I'm just going to do that. All right, here we go. So I'm just going to stop sharing. Okay, I'm going to try this again. I'm going to go ahead and click share. And I'm going to click whiteboard this time instead of the presentation. Whiteboard. Okay, so I'm going to click text. All right, here we go. So I was using the verb hacer, right? So the yo form would have been hago. Okay, so note that the ending is in the yo form, right? Yo hago. So here's the deal. When I'm using the subjunctive with a phrase like ojalá, okay, I use ojalá que, and I want to say you. Okay, so let's add you. Tú would have been what? Haces, right? Okay, so ojalá que tú and then what would the answer be? So how do I know? Step number 1, you're going to conjugate in the yo form. Okay? All right, so conjugate in the yo form. So for hacer, like we already said, it's hago. Hago is my answer, okay? So answer, hago, okay? Step 2, you're gonna drop the O, okay? So my answer, I'm left with the root or the stem of the word is ag, okay? And now, step 3, I need to figure out what ending I'm gonna use. So if I'm gonna say tú, haces would be es, because hacer is an ER verb. So in the normal present tense, you would have said es ending. But what you're gonna do for the subjunctive is you're gonna use the opposite ending. So step 3 would be like write it out, ag, and then now the opposite ending. Instead of es, I'm gonna write as, okay? Hagas. And that is how I do the subjunctive. So let's do another verb. I'm gonna erase this. Let's do the verb, let's say, not sacar, because I can use that later. Let's say, yeah, let's use sacar, okay? The verb sacar for like, get good grades, sacar buenas notas. And let's go with a desire, right? Or deseo, okay? Or demand, let's do demand. Demando, or demando que, okay? I demand you to, I'm gonna still use the you form, tú, okay? Actually, let's do the they form. You all, ustedes, okay? And let's see the answer. So I'm gonna use the verb sacar, and I'm gonna demand you to take out the trash. La basura. Right? It's a demand. I'm going to exclamations over here. Okay. So step 1, I'm going to conjugate in the yo form. So let's take sacar, and the yo form would have been saco. Right? Step number 2, you're going to drop the O. So I'm left with sac. Let me capitalize this. It bothers me. Okay. Step number 3, I need to look at the opposite ending, right? Choose ending and use the opposite one. Okay, so in this case, I'm gonna say it in the ustedes form. So the normal way, the present tense would have been sacan, but I'm gonna use the opposite, so it will be saquen. Right? The only problem is a spell change right here. Is that this right here says sacen, so I changed the C to QU, saquen. And now my answer would be, demando que ustedes saquen la basura. Okay, I demand you to take out the trash, you all to take out the trash. Is that making sense? So that's the normal subjunctive, and we just did an example of what we're going to talk about today. So I am going to now share my presentation again and get through this lesson. So verbs with spell change. Since you already know how to use the subjunctive, go think yo form, drop the O, and then add the ending, correct ending, but opposite form. Okay. So let's look at this. We got verbs with spell change that end in CAR, GAR, and ZAR have the usual spelling change in order to maintain the original sound of the infinitive. Criticar, for example, would be critico in a normal present tense. Investigar, investigo. Penalizar, penalizo. Proteger, protejo. But when you turn it into the subjunctive, you're going to end up with, notice a C, and then the ending would be E. And the problem with that is that it would say critizo or critice, but I need to say critique, okay? So what I do is when it's a CAR verb, I change it to QU. If it's a GAR verb, I change it to GU. If it's a ZAR, I change the Z to C. And that way I get the correct pronunciation. If it's a GER, right, I put the G in a J instead. So criticar would be critique. Investigar would be investigue. Penalizar, penalice. Proteger, proteja. Okay, so normal yo, protejo. Pero because it's a GAER verb, proteja. Okay, with a J in it. Now, some irregular verbs that are kind of weird. Think of the word sides. Ser, ir, dar, estar, and saber. All of these are irregular, annoying verbs, okay? So these you have to kind of memorize. They do not follow the step rules that we did earlier. So ser, que yo sea, que tú seas, que él sea, que nosotros seamos, que vosotros seáis, y que ellos sean. So these are the forms of ser in the subjunctive mood. Ir, que yo vaya, ¿verdad? Mis padres esperan que yo vaya. Instead of mis padres esperan que yo voy a la escuela. No, mis padres esperan que yo vaya a la escuela. I use the subjunctive. So, and these don't follow rules. So, yo vaya, que tú vayas, que ella vaya, que nosotros vayamos, que vosotros vayáis, que ellos vayan. Dar, to give, que yo dé. Normally it would have been doy, okay? But the subjunctive mood would be que yo dé, que tú des, que él dé, que nosotros demos, que vosotros deis, que ellos den, right? Estar, que yo esté, que tú estés, que usted esté, que nosotros estemos, que vosotros estéis, que ellos estén. And notice that I'm saying que behind everything, because that helps me remember to use the subjunctive. If you're a natural Spanish speaker, this kind of comes to you naturally. And the problem with you is that you haven't learned your rules, why this happens, which we just went over them. If you're an English speaker learning Spanish, the rules will help you to figure out how to do these, but these guys are the exception, so you have to make sure you memorize them. Saber would be que yo sepa, que tú sepas, que él sepa, que nosotros sepamos, vosotros sepáis, y ellos sepan. Okay, so you gotta memorize these and just remember sides for your main irregulars. There's more than these, but these are the main ones. Now, let's talk about stem changing verbs. Stem changing verbs are pretty annoying, okay? Sometimes they can be, sometimes they're not a problem, but let's look at these. AR and ER stem changing verbs, no stem change in nosotros and vosotros. So in present tense, we call them a boot verb, because if you were to circle all the pronouns, right, that do stem, you would end up with a boot, and nosotros and vosotros wouldn't stem. But same rule in the subjunctive mood. Pensar, so notice that normal present tense would be pienso, piensas, piensa, pensamos, pensáis, piensan, right? Normal present tense. But in the subjunctive, I have to change the ending to the opposite. So piense, que yo piense, que tú pienses, que él piense. Notice that I'm stemming E to IE, except nosotros and vosotros, right? Que nosotros pensemos, que vosotros penséis, que ellos piensen, okay? Opposite ending, even though pensar is AR. Now look at the stem O to UE, okay? The verb to try is mover. Mover is to move. Now, normal present tense, I would say muevo, muevas, or sorry, mueve, mueves, movemos, movéis, and mueven. That will be normal, but we're using the subjunctive mood because before you see this word, there's some kind of desire, some kind of expression, some kind of demand, some kind of wish happening before it with divided by a K, okay? So the subjunctive mood would be que yo mueva, right? Let's say I want you to move your toys out of the way, okay? I would say, quiero que muevas tu form, que muevas tus juguetes del medio, okay? Or I want us to move houses, right? Quiero que movamos casas, de casas, okay? Mováis, muevan. Anyways, you get the point. You're still stemming just like you would in the present tense, but nosotros and vosotros doesn't stem. U to UE, the only verb in the entire language that stems U to UE is jugar. So, ojalá que yo juegue baloncesto súper bien. Ojalá que tú juegues en el equipo de la escuela. Ojalá que ella juegue el sábado en la mañana para poder ir. Right? I wish she'd play on Saturday morning so I can go. Ojalá juguemos hoy en la clase de español. I hope we play a game in Spanish class today. Are you following here? So vosotros juguéis, sorry, opposite ending. Juguemos, juegues, okay? Anyways, juegan, and they're on. So opposite ending divided by que is your subjunctive. It's how you identify. But remember that your stems still stem, except nosotros and vosotros form. Eared, IR verbs. So we're talking about AR verbs. Now your IR verbs have two stem changes. You got O to UE, or O to UE to U, and E to IE to I. Okay? So E to I and O to U to U, right? It's not even UE, it's just U. So, and notice that these are IR verbs, okay? So dormir, I can say, I hope you all go to bed on time. Espero que ustedes se duerman a tiempo. I hope you guys go to bed or fall asleep on time. Ojalá que se duerman a tiempo. Okay? Notice that I stemmed O from dormir to UE, duerman. And instead of saying dormir, usually would have been a duermen, but it's a subjunctive mood, so I used the opposite A instead of a E. Mentir, que yo mienta, right? Que tú mientas, que él mienta, que nosotros mintamos, vosotros mintáis, que ellos mientan. Notice that all the forms use O to UE, right? But in nosotros and vosotros form, they use O to U. The mentir one, notice that they use E to IE on all the forms except nosotros and vosotros. In those two forms, they went E to I. Okay, so they stem both stems in one. So be careful with the IR verbs because they might stem a little different than you're used to. Okay. Now here are some IRs that keep the one stem, right, instead of two, like the other two examples. Servir would be sirva, sirvas, because normally it would be sirvo, sirves, but opposite ending, que yo sirva, que tú sirvas, que él sirva, sirvamos, sirváis, sirvan. These are or stemmed in all the forms. Nobody is excluded on this one. Pedir, to order or ask for, right? Que yo pida, que tú pidas, que él pida, pidamos, pidáis, que ellos pidan, right? They are stemmed in all the forms. No nosotros and vosotros excluded. They're actually included in the E to I stem change, and they are IR verbs as well. And that is the end of the presentation. I hope that you guys got a better idea of how the subjunctive works. I know it's a little complicated. It's not as easy as just a normal present tense, but hopefully this video helps, and you all know that you can text me through the via Remind and ask me any questions that you have, and I'll be more than happy to walk you through anything that you need me to help you with via Remind or maybe in person, right? If you see me in person, or schedule a class time on Wednesday when nobody's here, and I can sit with you and help you and explain to you how to do these things. But just let me know. I love you guys. Keep going. Keep hustling. You guys got us. Love you. Hasta luego. Adios. Ciao.